and welcome to the 10-Minute Life Coach. I'm Jay Clifton Payne, your host for this podcast. I am a personal and professional development specialist, and I assist people ready for improvement in developing their personal and professional goals into tangible, focused, and achievable plans of action. This podcast is just one of the tools I use to complete that mission. What we do in this podcast is provide for you in 10 minutes time a great lesson that you can take along with you right after listening to the podcast and incorporate into your life and work to your improvement for personal or professional gain. It's just like that. The podcast goes a little bit longer with some extra salesy stuff and, the back end things, but in 10 minutes time, you can literally take with you a lesson to get ready and do better for whatever it is you're trying to do. And if it seems like it's a lesson that doesn't work out that way, seems like we're doing something or saying something that is already in your repertoire, something you're already trying, then that's a sign that you're already on the right track. We are giving you the reinforcement that you need to find out that what you're trying to do that may seem like it's not quite working out as well as you think it is actually on the right track. More information on how I can help you in a one-on-one fashion can be found at the website 10minutelifecoach.com. Now, the other day I was listening to some old 90s and 80s music and popped up into Michael Jackson fix where things were going big. Michael Jackson, as he was transitioning out of his 80s stuff into his 90s stuff, essentially, for lack of a better term, going from the old Michael Jackson to the extra plastic surgery and skin lightening phase where he physically became a different person and his music changed with the times. It's something that he was actually good at doing, changing with the times from back being a kid to back when he was going solo to going through 70s and 80s and 90s and doing everything he could to stay relevant up until around the time when he was passing, and he had issues with essentially the new times and dealing with the way things worked in the new era. Now, this is not about the music, but what really popped into my head was watching the video for Remember the Time. There was, of course, the video where Michael Jackson is in Egypt and Eddie Murphy is playing the Pharaoh, and the whole song is Do You Remember the Time? That is the key to today's lesson in remembering the times when things are much better, when things aren't going so well. It's really great to have good times and good tidings to look backwards to when you're having times where things aren't so great. And I do understand that some people don't have exactly the best memories of good times as they're working through what they're going through right now. Everything is a bad time. Life hasn't been so great to them. But there's always something, always some glimmer of hope, some shiny example of fun things to look back to whenever things are looking bleak. If you can find a way to remember a time where things were greater when things are not so great, it's also a way for you to focus on a way to make things great again. If you have an example of something that was good before and you can find a way to put it in the future and figure out a way to work towards that goal again from where you are, then you can find a way to work out pretty much any sort of situation in life. So if you had a time where going on a great vacation was an awesome feat, and you just dream about going back to that same place, you know in your head that the situation isn't exactly the same, but you can put in your mind, plot a goal to go on a great vacation in the great similar location and try to gather as many types of people, or even the exact same people, to go along with you. If that will get you through a tough time where things just aren't working out for you and things are really down and depressing, that's one way to work yourself through something there. It doesn't have to be something as complicated as trying to plan an event to go someplace. It could be as simple as sitting back and just remembering a time, a good time that came back in the past, and using that bit of joy to remind yourself of what joy feels like, what joy sounds like, maybe what joy looks like, and how it works out. If you can get that joy back into your heart for just a split second, get a glimmer in your eye, and have that beat in your heart go thump, 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 thump in that special way, you can find a way to think yourself out of any dark, depressing situation. Now, I'm not saying you're going to fix depression by going back and thinking about old good times, because that's a bit more complicated than that. But if you're stuck in a funk, if you're stuck in a bad wave, you're just stuck in a wave of just bad luck, sometimes the easiest way to get out of that luck is to literally change your position, change the way you feel, and turn that frown upside down and go with something there. It is true that smiling does change your emotions, does change you physically and mentally by just the act of smiling, although sometimes you may not feel like smiling, but people can hear it in your voice, people can see it in your face when you smile. Your eyes do light up, your voice gets lighter, and things get a little better. Now, a seriously sad situation, a little smile is not going to fix everything, but putting a little smile on your face and doing your best to think back to a time, a place, an event, a person, something that gave you great joy and didn't turn around to give you great pain is a great way to look through things. Very often, I look back towards my childhood at things. Look back way back to times when I spent summers at my grandmother's house with myself and my sister, just the two of us, doing what we did as young kids, 10-year-old and 5 years old, just wandering around town, doing whatever we could do way back when you could drink out of water fountains and sit in the back of pickup trucks and do all sorts of things. Those are kind of times I look forward to whenever I'm stuck in a depressing time. Now, my sister has passed away, and my grandmother is still kicking it, thank God, but she's, of course, not quite as spry as she used to be, although she tries to be. But I can look back at those past times and look back at that great time I had back as a kid whenever something gets me into a funk. And then I also compare that to the times I have watching my kids now. I can compare my life then to what they're going through now, in a sense, and know that whatever they have going in their heads or sometimes physically going on with them, they should be able to make a way through that by using their past and great ideas and great thoughts and great memories from the past to work forward. My son, who is in his 20s, is doing that a lot now. He's using times when he was slightly younger, although he's in his 20s. Younger is saying a bit, to when he's getting through things. When he worked through a tough time at finals in college, he looked back to a time in grade school where he worked on a project that was much easier, and he used that as a way to boost himself to get through his hard college project. My young one, who's only 5, thinks everything is grand right now because she's kind of spoiled and everything is kind of grand right now. But in the future, hopefully she'll be able to channel some of this happiness she has right now and move it forward as far as she can remember. Now, I can remember things back to being about 4, 5 years old, and I do remember some very great things. I remember some not so great things from back in the day, but I do like to take some of those things and package them up and move them forward. Some of those 4-year-old happiness things don't really move me very much as a 40-year-old, but many things, like I said, back when I was 10, back when I was 15, back when I was 20, and back about 10 years ago, I'm in my 30s, I can use to power through what I'm going on now. If I'm having issues with my career, I can look at a time where I was advancing much faster, or I did something out of the ordinary that made me jump ahead a few steps, and use that as a way to remind myself that I do have the power and the ability to do great things, even if there's a stumbling block in front of me that just knocked me over, or a massive wall that I hadn't figured out a way to break through yet. I remember in the past, I've broken through plenty of walls and went over many stumbling blocks, sometimes tripping and falling, but going into a role and stepping up victorious. Sometimes you have to go back and look at the times from before, the times in the past where things weren't so great, and how they turned out much better to remind yourself that right now, things might not be so great, but things turned around and they got better. You have to find something from the past. And if you're a journal person, you're a person who writes things down in a diary or a log or has logs of old things they've done. If you're a person like me, or a pack rat who has copies of very, very old documents and reports of progress in various projects. I even have some from high school in the garage, printouts from high school. I'm that bad at that. But just like physical pictures back in the day when you had them all over the place, you'd pull out a box of old pictures and the old memories would flood to you and you remember great things from the past. Your old memories from other things in the past can help you get through bad things right now. There has got to be some time in the near past, or maybe farther past, but there has to be a time and some place somewhere in your past where there was happiness, there was joy, there was fulfillment, there was progress, there was you standing on top of the mountain cheering as the person who persevered over everything and won. When you're sitting in times when you're not winning, when things are not going your way, and sadness is trying to overtake you, you need to find a way to get back to one of those times mentally and sometimes physically, like we said, sometimes work towards getting back to that place and remembering exactly what about the place, the time, the action, the activity made you feel so great then, so that you get a great feeling in the moment and hopefully can transfer that into a future great feeling or a plan to make a future great feeling to keep you going on and on and on and progressing through whatever it is that has you being held back at the time. And that is our lesson for today. Thank you very much for being a part of the 10-Minute Life Coach. I'm very happy to say we're doing some testing on some things. We're doing some testing of a quote-unquote mobile studio setup so we can get more of these things done quicker. We won't have to batch so many of them up, and we can kind of do them in real time. So you'll get more response or quicker response from the feedback that is being given. So you tell me I need to fix something, I can fix it immediately and not wait 3 episodes because I tape 4 at a time and have them set and ready to go. So a quicker studio access, but it has to have good enough quality, if you will. So we're working on tweaking that. And so this episode, whether I like it or not, is going out because we want to hear your feedback on how it's going and what you think about mostly the sound and the delivery. A couple things here in the way the studio is working. Trying to record more in a mobile setting and inside of my actual home office/studio, which is not exactly built studio-wise. So that's why we're having some technical issues, make sure everything works out well. So tell us what you think about this, and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible. We'll probably do some batches in the big studio between this one and whenever I hear this, when it gets released and whenever we have new ones. So it may take a while to get that info, but like we said, we're testing the studios, the mobile studio setup to see how well that works out. In the meantime, just give us a holler if you want to hear about how things are going with us, or you want to tell us how things are going and get progress on the other projects we have going on. We have already talked about in past episodes, we'll see exactly where this one comes out, about the relaunch of the $10 Life Coach, or whatever it will be called, the $10 community that we'll be relaunching so that we as a gathering of group can crowdsource from ourselves great works and great plans to help people get through whatever it is they're getting through. Maybe we may share a happy time from our times and transfer it to you and see if you can get something out of it. Sometimes that helps as well. So you'll find out more information about the $10 Life Coach and its rebirth coming very, very, very soon. Probably not by the time this is heard, but very soon in the process. Of course, you can check out the page, 10-Minute Life Coach, for information on other coaching avenues. We have a pricing guide up there right now that's kind of iffy right now, but if you contact us via the page, we'll talk to you about getting you set up for one-on-one coaching, which is always available based on timing, and some group coaching issues as well. That's also based on how many people sign up for the deals. The prices are a bit negotiable. I can say that, and I will say that, although I shouldn't say that from a professional standpoint. But the prices are negotiable at the time as we're trying to set up an infrastructure to automate everything, keep things going. So if you're looking for some coaching, I might be the one for you, and I might get it to you at a very good price if you can talk me down a little bit, which apparently is fairly easy. So check that out at 10minutelifecoach.com for all the information on what's going on there. My other projects can be found at jclevelandpayne.net. You can see what else is going on there. And, of course, send me emails via info@jclevelandpayne.net, or the always spammy but checked more often, to be honest, jclevelandpayne@gmail.com. Thank you so much for being with us for the full ride, and hopefully this won't be a painful experience in the audio world of these things. I know a lot of podcasters, I talked to a lot of podcasters, and they get a little over particular about things like audio quality and the perfectness of how their things sound, when often it just needs to sound and be clear. But I do know a lot of people are really big audiophiles, or think they are, and get into that stuff. So if the sound isn't working for you, if it's distracting, if it just doesn't sound quite the same, and you need us to go back to something else, more stuff in the studio, more tweaking in the mobile studio, let us know in comments. And, of course, let us know in emails. Oh, by the way, have you commented on any of our podcast episodes lately? We're seeing more and more individual podcast comments in various spots, including on Spreaker. If you're a Spreaker person in that community, you can comment directly on the episodes there. You can also do it at Stitcher as well. And we really, really, really need you to go to iTunes if you're an Apple user, an Apple Podcast user, or old school iTunes user. Stop by iTunes, leave a rating and review on this one, because iTunes, despite everyone else not so much saying they don't use iTunes, it is the granddaddy of discovery for essentially all podcasters. So I need a few more reviews to come out on Apple, on iTunes specifically, to get a little extra Apple juice, as they're going to start doing some stats reporting from the Apple products, so I can see how many Apple people are going there. Although I will admit that we are essentially mostly Android family. Most of my podcasts are 55% Android, so it's leans towards that route, but we love you regardless of where you come from and where you get your podcast from. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on a podcast. Please review the podcast wherever you are and share it with a friend, someone else who's like-minded, someone else who could use a little bit of quick coaching and maybe some extra coaching on the side. They can check me out at the website for that as well. In the meantime, we'll be back again next week. Next week will probably be a studio episode, so we can get back to tweaking what we can do here until we build extra things for this mobile studio setup. But we'll be back next week. That much will be a guarantee. A promise from me, Jay Cleveland Payne, and the 10-Minute Life Coach.